What's happening, everyone? Welcome to Thursday Night Airbrush Down and Dirty Tricks. Hey, it's 8:02. Let's do a quick video check, do a quick sound check, see how everyone's doing. Let's see who we got in the house here. We have Bill Douglas Jr., the Delinquent C. Oh, I like that name. That's awesome. Amos Mendez, Darryl Plank, Mike Manning, Brian Moore, Kyle Shees, Grumpy RC. What's going on, man? Michael Cohen. Hopefully the sound is good, the video is good. I'm just going to see if I can get the Facebook feed going. I was having issues with it earlier. Typical. I don't know why I bother, but I do. I'm going to give it one more shot. If not, I'm going to go end it. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate that. Been off for 2 weeks. Had to relearn everything. All right. Here we go. What's this? Is that? Is that? Is that? All right. I think we're good. All right, we are good. Let me clean these glasses off. The eyes off. Yeah, I'm watching the Facebook one. It just every like 30 seconds is his feed interrupted and like pauses. Yeah, we're not going to be bothering much there anymore. It's just not, Steve and me have talked about it a lot too, and the fact that any live feed we do is gone after 30 days anyway, it defeats the purpose of doing how-to videos that people can learn from, so it's not even worth really doing it over there. So it doesn't keep bothering me and off to the side. Sorry, guys. You guys who are on Facebook, click the link and get over to YouTube. Watch it over there because it's just really not useful right now. So I am just going to switch this on for a sec. Go kill that. Because why suck up bandwidth when it doesn't need to? It's just not needed. Not needed. Thomas Thompson, Gerald Mendez, what's happening? All right, back to it. Let's show you what we got going on tonight. You probably saw a couple weeks ago the bagger I started with the skull of the rose, and that one led to a bunch of different designs. So I ended up with a ton of skull vectors I was using, then rose vectors that the bagger is going to be mainly skulls, but then the rose will have skulls in them. So the first one I did, I just did a normal rose and I freehanded the skull inside. And it looks cool, but I want to get some a little bit more dramatic. So as I was doing it, I put some skulls together and ended up with a new download set that you guys can go take a look at. That is over here at McKayFineArt.com. And the link's in the description. So, skulls in roses, and that led to me thinking of Guns N' Roses, so just kind of a play on the logo. Kelly Ross, what's happening, man? It's been a while. Gary Shees, what's going on? So what I did, there's 15 roses, and then the petals and stuff. These petals are pretty much the same as the rose one. They're straight roses from a couple years back. I just added an extra leaf to it. But it's 15 rose and skull designs. Each rose is, some of them have the same, like this one, you have the rose of the stem and then one without. And then, so you got like, I think 12 unique ones, and then there's variants of the same one with or without stem. So that's available. And for all you guys who are members, obviously, oops, that's the wrong one. I don't know where the, Anyway. Yep. Huh. I messed up the link. It's okay. Technical things when going live is always fun. This is the paint we're mixing up. This is the paint we're using tonight. Obviously the UVLS, that's the clear. I mixed the candy in. I did a quick blurb earlier. That's 1-to-1. I don't even really add reducer to it much. You can add more, but for like coverage, I just go equal parts 40-50 to the candy. And that's pretty much reduced to spray at that point because the candy dye will itself is water thin, and that'll thin the UVLS. But if you need extra, you can always add 4011, 4021, whatever from there, whatever you're choosing. Then I did Wicked Black, and I added 4050 to make it transparent, or you can also add 4004, which is basically just transparent base, and you can make a more transparent black. I did a candy black just to have it in case I need it, and then I did a gray. And the grays I also mixed a little on the thinner side, so therefore they can be, you can build in light coats. I like to usually attack things. I don't want the paint too strong like t-shirt days where it goes down like full 100% color. I want to be able to build tone. So, yeah, I like to get like 2 to 3 passes before it goes. That way it gives me control over my contrast and values and tone. And before we get going, let's thank all our down and dirty tricksters, all our members who support the channel, and don't forget, all you guys get 25% off all the downloads in the store. So if you want this rose set, all you members will get 25% off in the store. And if you're not a member, it's $3 a month through YouTube to support the channel. It helps us get all these feeds set up and going. And if you join now, you'll get 25% off the $40, so you pretty much get it free for the month. So if you're going to do the download. So let's get into it. So thank you all, Gold Skulls. I think Abus Mendez and I forgot to add Dave the Bug Gregory. I forgot to add your Gold Skull. I was because you just came up on I think the latest one. So thank you for all the support. I got my first bottle of primer. I got my first bottle of 4050. Now I have to learn how to use it. It says 6-to-1 ratio. So 6-to-1. So you got to remember 40-50 depends what you're doing with it. So if you're mixing candies, you can go 6-to-1, 8-to-1 when you're spraying out of like a larger gun for coverage in larger areas. For airbrushing, you can do 1-to-1. Okay, there is a full tech sheet that explains more, other than just what's on the bottle. And the 6-to-1 really, when it says that that's for spraying. So that's up to like, you can go that high. You could also just go like 5-10% to spray it as a clear. Because remember, 40-50 is, sorry about that. Let me get the members list off there. 40-50 does multiple things. A, it's a UV top coat that will protect your artwork from UV fading and also protect it from touching, things like that. So that's its one job. It's also can be used to make their t-shirt paint into, it normally sticks just to acrylic, just to fabric and textiles. It'll then turn it into like, almost like a polyurethane that will actually grip to hard surfaces. So it'll turn what normally doesn't, it's normally for t-shirts, it'll convert that to stick to hard surfaces. And there's a ratio for that, like 10%, 15% you can go into it. That's also a clear binder, mixing clear, that can be used for the candies. So you can do your 1-to-1, your 4-to-1, your 8-to-1, depending on how strong you want the candies. So it's a binding clear at that point, or a carrier at that point. So the 40-50 has a lot of jobs. The Create Text Colors YouTube page has quite a bit of breakdowns. I've done a bunch of videos there. Arpin did a lot of videos. There's a whole bunch that explains the 40-50. So you definitely want to learn that. And Brian, if you got any questions, give me a buzz. Honey, thank you very much. I was talking so much. Thank you for your super chat. I appreciate it. And the good news is for Honey, Lindsay, Gary, everyone who bought panels in the past four months or so, everything's getting boxed up. Most of it's boxed and everything's going out. I gotta go to the post office tomorrow. I haven't even left the house in 2 days. But everything's polished, ready, done, and heading out. So thank you for that. What am I seeing? Hey, Darren, Mike, Tom, blah, 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 blah. Oh, you didn't miss today. I'm just trying to scroll through. Michael Cohn, thanks to Spray Gunner Seminar. Clear coating, fish. Oh, sweet, man. That's awesome. Cool. Bouncing out of the feed became a. Oh, congratulations, honey. That's awesome. Awesome. Congratulations. Very, very cool. Very, very cool. I'm hoping that goes off. That's a while for me. Can you mix candy H2O together? Oh, yeah. So, like, if you were on the feed a couple weeks ago when I did the gears, was it the gears I talked about it? Oh, and when I did the servo skull, that was a good example of the mix. I mixed Dirty Penny to mix my Dirty Penny and my espresso. That's a different mix ratios of the Dirt Track Brown and Orange, with like 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 with that, and then Dirt Track Brown, Orange, and Black candy is a different tone, so you can pre-mix. So what I do is, because I mix a 1-to-1, so say I do a half an ounce of 40-50, and then I'm going to mix a half an ounce of my mixture colors. So if I'm doing equal parts of Dirt Track Brown and Grabber Orange, I'll do that in a separate cup. So that way I know it's half ounce, 1-to-1, mix that together. So yeah, you can totally do that. So on Tricksters, as a 40K fan, I must say that your Warhammer piece was awesome. Oh, thanks, man. I really, really appreciate that. Yeah, actually, let me go grab that, because that is cleared, polished, and ready to go out. So you guys can see it in all its glory. Let's bring this up on screen here. And you can tell that clear really makes a difference, especially on the copper. So that's the piece. So you can tell how it looks. Oops. Yeah, side by side. So you can tell the way the light hits it, how much it changes. So, can you do the two candies together? What do you mean? Yeah, that's what I was explaining. So, you can mix any combination of candies. So, like, when I did these colors, I did equal parts of Dirt Track Brown and Grabber Orange to make a different color candy. And then you can make another color candy. You can mix them both up in your 40-50. And then if you want to mix those together, yeah, you can mix those together like any other color. Not a problem. So yeah, this is the piece. It looks really, really cool. I love the double stacked edge. So yeah, this came out really nice. In hindsight, you can just make out the Aquelas in here at the right angles. In hindsight, you never know till you do it. I kind of wish I did them a little darker, or laser etched them a little deeper so they had a more dramatic effect. But that's custom. So yeah, thanks. That was really cool. That was a fun project to do. It's going to be going to a good home. Speaking of Adepticon 2 and 40K, I just got my badge for Adepticon, so that's awesome. Stoked for that. All right, let's show you what we're working on here. I'm going to move this camera so the split screen looks a little better. There we go. And then that's the down. That's the top down. Let's move that. Can you paint? You can't really do that. Honey, you starting the bid out 200? Thank you. Can you? Yeah, it wouldn't really work that way. I have seen people do it with like 3D glasses, different things like that, where you could do blue shift and then red shift. But on the angle, it wouldn't. The way the angle stuff works is you'd have to have like ribs in it. So from this angle you see one image, that angle you see the other one. So you can't really do that by hand. At least I don't know how to do it. So let's talk about what I got going on here. So we have our panel. And so if you look at the reference image, that's a picture of the front fender of the bike we're doing right now. And it's got a nice clean look, but also a gritty look. And that's what I want to talk about tonight, is how you achieve that. And the only way you can achieve all this grunge and nastiness is to mix masking and freehand. Because you can't do all this grunge effect stuff, you can't do all the grunge and splatter and spray without masking. Because if you do it with nothing, no masking involved, you know, and you try to do it just freehand with nothing, you're going to have dirty, the skull and the rose will have the same texture and grit as everything else. So the reason for the masking is to isolate different areas to achieve a different effect. So that's why I use multiple techniques, and that's why I encourage people to learn as many techniques as possible, whether it's freehand, masking, plotted mask, hand cut, just paper cut stencils. You can purchase stencils or just do it. There's a million ways to do it, and the more techniques you learn, the more options you have to attack a project, and you're not going to limit yourself. I've been doing this 35 years, and I've done every technique imaginable, and sometimes you want to go all freehand, sometimes you want to do mask, sometimes you want to do a mix. You got to learn it all, or you're going to severely limit yourself, and you're going to back yourself into a corner really, really quick. So the first thing I'm going to do is, this is the rose. It's got the skull in it right here. Well, actually, right here, tilted. The rose is kind of off tilted. And I talk about sequential masking, and this is where you're going to determine what's on top and what's on bottom, okay? Whatever's in the foreground, okay, has to get masked first, okay? Because that's the last thing you're going to pull. When you do sequential masking, say if I have 3 layers, the first layer gets covered up by the second layer, which is covered by the third layer. So when you paint, everything's here, and then you pull that layer, then you paint that image, and you pull that layer, and then you go to the third. So you go down, and that's going to be the reverse on a light colored surface. So what gets masked first is actually going to be unmasked last, and that'll be more in your foreground. It makes more sense when you do it, so we'll just get right into it and go from there. Let's go. Saving up for Sharon. Yeah, I got to do one of him this year. It'll happen. It'll happen. Because if you look at the reference image on the fender, the first thing I put down was the rose, then the skull, and then the vine is not plotted at all. The vine is actually hand cut and kind of planned after those two are set. So they all get masked, and then we go from there. So I'm going to walk you through that process. It makes a little more sense as we go from there. All right. So standard application, we have our cut mask. I've already weeded the perimeter. I got it transfer taped and ready to go. And we're going to do the hinge technique, which is what I've always found is the best way to get this on. And I'm going to go from there. Oh, hold on 1 second. There's one thing I might have forgot. Very good. Okay. What I'm also going to show you is, after I do that, I'm going to have to counter mask and back mask the rose to get the red candy in there without getting it here, which I meant to cut an outer mask for, but I didn't. So we're going to do that by hand and show you how to hand mask it. All right, let's get this on. We're going to start at the bottom. Squeegee it on. This is a 12 by 18 panel. Aluminum polymetal, so it's that PVC core, but it's aluminum top and bottom. Pull the hinge. Always pull the hinge before you add this side, or you'll get this piece of vinyl stuck. I've done it. Students have done it. And it really sucks when you do it. London Pen, thank you for joining up, sir. Refreshing your membership. Okay, now I'm going to lay this side down. Work all the air out. Okay, so that rose is going to be on top of everything. So you're going to see it all. Pull this. Now, if you look, I've already done the. Let me go to top down here. So before I masked it, I used a little charcoal or pounce powder. I've talked about this before. If you have trouble seeing your cuts, before you weed it, pounce a little powder on there and wipe it off, or a little dirt. It'll fill in all your cuts. Makes it way easier to see. And you're all set from there. Now, for the big skull that's going to be there, you could plot a skull if you have a plotted skull, like if you use the Skull Revolution that has all the different flags, you can use that skull, put it right in the center if you want to do a plot. But if you want to do a paper cut style, like, you know, basically one of these, which is a tried and true method that we've done quite a bit. So if you're not going to be doing, I'm going to be adding a vine through here. If I wasn't, you could just magnet this down and we can find a place for it and we could just freehand it. But let's just say you don't have a plotter, and this will work for the rose too. You don't have a plotter, you just have the printout, you just have the thing, and you want to cut it out. But you want a mask, okay? You want to be able to put a mask down there. There's two ways you can do it. You can put transfer tape over this and spray it so you get an outline and then cut, or you can do this. And I'm going to show you what I did here. If you look at my cutting mat, I have the silhouette. Oops, get that so it doesn't pull apart. I have the silhouette of the skull right here that I could put down, you know, wherever I want it. Oops. It helps if you use a bigger piece of mask. So let me walk you through the test one. This is how I'm going to do it. It's a bit easier. So, you take your paper, and I'm using cardstock here, okay? I put clear transfer tape on my cutting mat first, okay? And I had to tape it together because my big sheet of transfer tape was out in the shop, not up here in the studio. Then what you're going to do is you're going to tape this down to the panel, okay? And then when I cut through here, I'm going to get a matching cut on the mask underneath. And I like to do it this way so I'm not cutting directly on the metal, because on automotive, if you can avoid cutting directly on the substrate, you're going to have a much better quality paint job, and you're not going to risk cutting through your base coat into your primer and maybe messing up the surface, which we don't want to do. So that's where this technique comes in. So you can do all your hard cut here, get a silhouette mask, trying to do this without blocking too much. And once you're through, here. Whoops. That's why you keep it taped, so you can make sure you get all the way through everything. Now the cool thing is when you do this on paper, you're going to have positive and negative loose mask, and you're going to have a hard cut, transfer tape mask underneath. Exactly, poor man's plotter, or I should say how I started before plotters existed. We didn't have them. Yeah, I'm that old, and I've been painting that long and doing this technique. So the 80s, late 80s, 90s, when we were doing cars and bikes, we did a lot of this. We did paper cut. A lot of it was Illustrator techniques that fine art illustrators used that we learned, and we would just sheet tape the car with transfer tape or big sheets of tape, or we had this stuff called liquid mask back in the day, which they still make. A lot of the RC guys use it. And the liquid mask we would spray on the car, sketch it out, draw it. There's a million ways to do it. Yeah, you gotta be good with a knife. So like I said, oh, my iPad just fell. Excuse me, guys. Sorry. you know, so we would, like I said, we were doing this before plotters and everything. But as plotters came along, we learned how to adapt that. And I was fortunate I worked inside a sign shop. We can do that. I was inside a sign shop, so while I was doing sign work, for a lot of the lettering we would do in masking and vinyl, or we would cut masking to spray through. And then when we were doing cards and stuff, it led me to certain ideas like, well, if we can do that, if we do an American flag, we can do all the stars, we can do the stripes, we could do massive checker patterns, things that you could do by hand, but it would take 4 days versus 4 hours. So it became about efficiency. So there's a time and place you use every technique, and you should learn as many as you can. There's some people that, say, oh, if you use a plotter, you're cheating, or you're not an artist, you're doing this, you're cheating. And usually the guys who say that, how do I put this nicely? Their work doesn't follow their mouth. Just because they don't know how to use it or don't want to use it because they can't, or they don't like it, means anyone else who does is doing it wrong. It's arbitrary rules, usually by people who don't do it full-time or don't understand production versus, quality. Know as many techniques. I've always used the analogy, you can build a house with a hammer, or you can use a pneumatic. At the end, they both get done. Just one gets done a hell of a lot faster, and in the end, the result is the same. You have a quality job that the customer wants to pay for. So people can do however they want to do it. All right, so let me take my little ghosting out. All right, so I have a silhouette here. So I'm going to try this time to remove this without pulling it apart, because that's always the trick. I did this earlier, the practice run. So I'm going to try to do it here. There we go. There we go. Good. And wherever I put the skull, this is going to line up with my paper cut one. And I'm going to put this one like basically right here. I'm going to put the skull over this leaf. So therefore, even though the skull's being done first, that leaf is going to go over it. So that's where the skull is going to be located. All right, so that's the plan. This is what I've done for the mask. So, like I said, this lines up with that perfectly. So you can do all freehand in here. Imagine an artist who only uses his mouth. Yeah, it's quite a few of those. They usually spend their time online instead of painting. So how I do this is on cardstock. I cut out the major shapes so we can pull and fold. And the eyes, what I do is I just stop it here so they can be folded back. So you have your full socket, but you also have detail inside. I may be coming up, sorry. I may be coming up with some paper versions of this that we can sell. Sorry. And then from here, we got the same thing, detail, fold. And fold all your details up, and that's what we got there. I'm going to set these aside. Set this aside till later. Get a drink of water. All right, now if you look at the reference image, there's the thorn. The thorn I did is I drew it in and then hand cut it. So I'm just going to make it easy. This is regular transfer tape. Just standard vinyl transfer tape. I do. And man, I got something in my throat tonight. So, now, I know what the skull is. The skull's right here. And I'm just going to draw it out so I know roughly where it is so you can see it. Okay, that's the location of the skull. And now I'm going to decide, like, okay, that's going to go behind the skull. So I can do a thorn there. I'll have another one that'll come over this side of the skull. Weave in and out. Maybe knuckle back like this. And go up like that. That's going to be behind. So here and here. Give a nice little sketch. Let me move my little skull here. No, I'm not a whistle pig tonight. So this, I like my thorns like really like gnarled up, and you know, this can go over this. I'll have a big hook right here. So this is the same process I'm doing on this motorcycle right now. And what's cool when you do it this way is you can just kind of let it happen. Could I have plotted these and designed on the computer? Sure. It would have taken longer. It wouldn't be as flowing. I could have made it look faster for you guys because it'd already be done. But I don't want to do that. I want to show you as many techniques as possible. So that goes there. You know what? This one can go outside of the border. That one can go outside the border. And then, again, if we go back to the reference image, you see the small, like, black thorns in the background, the thorn, like, branches. Those are just free-handed in before I start pulling the mask, and I'll show you that trick, too. So I got to remember, if I want this to be on top, I got to bear it a little harder because I'm going to cut through the mask underneath. You know, like I said, I do these really kind of gnarled up. It's funny, I was actually watching it the other day. I actually just put it on. I always put like random movies on, stuff like that. And I put on The Secret of Nim, and there's a scene when Mrs. Brisby goes into like the thorn bush, and it's really cool lighting, really cool effect. The thorns are, you know, Don Bluth really gnarled up his thorns, and a lot of looks like that. And you can do them like really long too if you want them that long. I keep them here. And just kind of get it to where you want it and figure out, you know, if you don't like something, you can exit out and do another one. I was just going to say, it reminds me of, yeah, I mean, I watched a lot of Bluth when I was a kid, man. Between The Black Cauldron and Secret of Nim, played the Dragon's Lair. Like, see, I don't like this. They're two side by side. We're gonna skip that. And definitely a big influence. Oh, Dragon's Lair painting would be cool. That could be a cool theme. There's a bunch of themes that I have on the list that have been asked. One I've been wanting to do for a long time, and I got a good friend who's been wanting one, is an Army of Darkness, like Evil Ash and the Evil Dead painting. So that's on the list. A Dragon's Lair one could definitely be on the list. Yeah, that's definitely on there. I think Army of Darkness is definitely one. You know what? I don't like how this one cuts everything off, so we're going to not do this one. We're going to come down a little further in and then join back up here because I don't want it to cut off this tip of the rose. So we're not going to do this one. That one's gone. that's how you just kind of sketch and adjust and make stuff happen. And it's a lot more freeing. Again, what I really wanted this to do was show you how to use every technique in the book for one painting. Because when you get into custom motorcycles and you get into custom fine art, and you're on timelines deadlines, you want to use as many tools and techniques as possible. And I'm not saying I'm a master of them all, but mastering or getting close to mastering as many techniques as possible is paramount to being successful in any type of business, especially in a creative space. If you limit yourself to only one way of doing things, I promise you, you'll back yourself into a corner. I promise you, you will lose jobs that you would have gotten had you been able to do it this way. Or your profit margins are so low because instead of taking faster, more efficient ways to do it, you did it the slow way, but you weren't able to adjust the pay scale because no one's going to pay for the slow method if it's a less efficient. They want the end result in what they pay for. So you got to use what gets you there. Now, if a client says, I don't care if it takes twice as long, I want it all hand brush and all freehand, no masking, no tape, no nothing, and I'm willing to pay the extra time, then by all means, definitely do it. It's like body shop guys, like when you do in restos. I know guys that don't want any filler. They want it all hand rolled and hand hammered, and then if any filler, it has to be leaded, and people do it, and it looks awesome, and it's amazing. And there's guys that are willing to pay for it and guys who are really good at doing it. But it takes twice as long as using just a nice, normal polyester filler where it needs it. I'm not talking about mud slapping, 1/4 inch thick of Bondo, because that's a hack way of doing things. But a little filler here and there to get rid of ripples and little imperfections is just a fine way to do some restoration. But lead is actually better, or hand rolling and hand hammering. But if your customer's not willing to pay for it, then don't do it. If your customer's got caviar taste and a McDonald's budget, that's on him, not your loss. So keep that in mind. Definitely don't cut off the tip. No, you definitely don't want to cut off the tip. Definitely add Dirk to the list. If I did one, I don't think I would do Dirk. If I did Dirk, it would be skeleton Dirk when he's dying, which that could be fun. Because he's got the, he's got the arms crossed, and he's like, yeah, that was awesome. Or maybe I do the dragon, or, shoot, I forget the princess's name he goes to save. Daphne? I think it's Princess Daphne. Could be wrong. I think I'm right. I'm getting commercials during the feed. I thought I shut that off. Huh. I'm sorry, in the settings, I'm pretty sure I shut that off. It must have auto-turned back on, because I usually have it off. I'm going to go quick look. I don't think I can change it midstream. Let's see. Organization. Okay, so I changed it so it should be less frequent, but let's see, live reactions, trailers. Okay, I think I shut them off. Hopefully it doesn't happen anymore. If you have YouTube Premium, they don't show up, but I'm supposed to have it set that when I'm live, they won't come up. So hopefully that doesn't happen anymore. Let me know if it does. Okay, so once you're done, now we're going to go to hand cutting. Now, when you're hand cutting directly on metal in someone's car, you can only do it once. So if I miss a line, I'm stuck with it. You don't want to go back for more because you're going to have a double cut. Okay, so, and you can't really tell where you cut, so you got to kind of remember. So I usually follow a line, And I try to make sure I cut heavy, so I'm going to cut through both masks. Try to remember where I'm at. And the nice thing about this design is I can kind of adjust on the fly. Now I'm going to stop there. Okay, now I know I got that outer. Now I'm going to go here, same thing. Trying to keep one contact if possible, especially when I'm doing that over. Okay, so that should be good. Burger King budget. So this one I'm going to have go off the page, so that's going to go all the way through the border. I'm going to go here, here. Okay, I think I'm good. Mike, understand what's happening. And I'm going to come off this other side here. I'm going to start the top side. And so like the bike I'm doing right now, what I do is I go through most of the bike and get this all done. So it's all masked, all kind of laid out. The flow is determined. I'm going to add another thorn right there.
Anything else in there, or I'm going to consider this puppy wrapped up?
I don't think, you can usually feel the cut. So I didn't do this side yet, but I did this one. Okay. So now I did the outer. Now I'm going to go to the bottom side. I missed that first cut. And what you're doing is you're leaving this so you can paint around it. And then I can freehand the kind of outline and then shade inside it. And it stays separate from the background. So remember the background, the only reason I'm doing it this way is because the background's going to have all that grunge and water splatter and spit spatter. So you've got to keep everything masked and clean, or it's going to get all over your artwork. Because you can't freehand well grunge, wet splatter, spitting, and everything else I'm going to be doing. So in the 90s and 80s, the whole bike would be done like this. There would be no plotting. So for the troll on the airbrush page that kept saying, I only use plotters and stencils. Son, I've been doing this before plotters existed. So, I can do it every which way. So I want to pull this out. Pull this all out here. Cool, so that's there. That's there. So this is the foundation. This is the layout. This is the prep. This is everything that goes in to that bike painting I'm doing right now. This is the process. And there's one thing, the reason, whenever I make a vector download set, I don't bother if it's something I'm only ever going to use like once or twice, because I don't think it adds value for you guys or anyone else. What I do is something I know is going to be used over again. And the one thing I've done over and over again in my 30 years of doing this is I've painted roses and I've painted skulls more times than I can count. So if I can make it more efficient when I'm doing 30, 40 skulls on a bagger and 20, 30 roses, I want to get it done in a week versus 2 weeks or 3 weeks, then this is the ticket to make that happen. And so that's basically the layout. So if you look at the reference image here, that's kind of how I masked it. Okay, so that's the job. Oops, that's the job planned out, and I know where it's all going to lie. Okay, so. And I know it may be confusing why I do it this way, but as you unmask, it starts making sense. And on some colors, this method doesn't work. You got to go a different direction, or you got to mask, and you might have to counter mask and cover something up. Like if I want this red rose without any bleed, freehand and red candy over pure white, you're gonna get a little bit of overspray. So you're gonna want to do a mask, and whether it's a paper cut or it's a plot or something like that, there's a time you have to counter mask. I try to make my masking sequential enough where when I start painting, I'm simply removing the masks, and that's what I've always preached. Sometimes you can't do that. Sometimes you got to remove, and sometimes you got to put back on, and then you got to remove and put back on. I try to minimize the put back on. I try to make it so you strategically plan everything, and then you work your way out of it. Okay, we've talked about a lot of times, but you first time guys watching it, that's been my method for years on cars and bikes. It's been efficient. It keeps your mill thickness down, so you can use half the clear coat. So you don't have to do 3-4 coat sessions to build up all your tape levels. Because every time you mask and counter mask and spray and mask, you start building up tape edges. So again, I try to minimize that as much as possible. All right, now, nope, I didn't pull this. That would have been atrocious if I left that. Double and triple check. What's the best advice you got to paint roses? I've tried a few. I'm going to be showing it to you, so watch the video. You're going to be seeing it. If you're doing it freehand, you just have to freehand it. But if you do a masking like this, and you don't, like I say, you don't have to have a plot. If you had this print file right here, and you just drew that, if you transfer tape the whole surface, and you hand cut all the lines where these lines are, how I have it laid out here, the process is the same. So again, you don't need to have a plotter to use this file set. If you don't have a plotter, you can just use the JPEGs or PNGs and print them to scale, transfer them to your surface, and then paper cut it. Or paper cut each shape out of the paper as you go. So there's ways to do it. But yeah, it's going to make a lot more sense as I go through it. But right now, we're going to get onto the gritty background. And this is the main reason. Thanks for circling watching Alvin and the Chipmunks. Why would I be watching Alvin and the Chipmunks? Yeah, I thought the Chipmunks were going to start. Did I miss something? On the Chipmunks thing. Does the audio sound weird? I don't know. Hopefully not. Okay, I'm just going to keep going. A little drink. Okay. So, first on the list, I'm trying something on my airbrush that I've seen guys do. You know, one of the mini painters, Ninja, I was watching, was doing this with his paintbrushes. Tattoo gauze. You know, this non-stick, but it sticks to itself, but it doesn't have any tack to it. I wrapped one of my airbrushes with it as padding for long sessions, you know, if we're going to be working, just to try it. I haven't actually used it yet. There was chipmunk audio before. Twice now I've heard chipmunks talking. I wonder what's happening there. I wonder, does it do it when I'm doing this, I wonder? Like sped up voices, huh? I don't know. I'm gonna go quiet for a second, see if there's anything. Twice now we have heard chipmunks talking. Does it sound like that now, when I'm doing it right now? Because that's weird if it is. Because on my end, it shouldn't be sped up at all. No, it's just randomly, huh. I'll have to listen for it in the playback. I'll have to mark it. How long into the feed am I right now? What time is it? How long have I been going? 8:52. Okay, so about an hour in. Almost like it came from somewhere else. I hear all the time. Okay, well, let's see. Let's see if that goes away now. I just changed. I took off one of the the hyper deck was on for a little bit, so maybe there was something playing in the background. Okay, so like I said, background. I got my black here. This is a transparent black. I've thinned it. I've mixed it. I've reduced it. I've strained it. All my usuals. The audio is perfect. Okay. Let's see what we got here for color. We got our black. Okay, really simple. What I'm going to do first, let's do a couple different ways to do grit. But not on my phone. Okay, weird. I'm going to do the old popsicle stick trick just to do some texture. So if you've never done this, what you do is you're basically ricocheting the paint off the popsicle stick, and the closer you are to the tip, the finer the dots would be. See how small they are? Now if I go back further, they'll be bigger, okay? Small. Big. Okay, that's on the masking, so it doesn't matter. So I'm just gonna I'm gonna go kind of everywhere. And this is why you mask, because what I'm gonna do is wipe it and make these like just kind of grimy streaks. Just let it happen. Just let it happen. Now I'm going to do a mix. And I'm going to drop shadow. But I'm going to do like basically like just a blend fade around everything. Okay. Which looks kind of gross, but then what I'm going to do is like I did on the, when I was doing the, where's my isopropyl? I need my isopropyl. Ah, there it is. Okay. So I got water and isopropyl alcohol. What I'll do is I'll mix that up. Let that eat for a little bit. And what I can do is even while that's on, I can spray. Now if you let it dry, you'll get a water droplet effect. Okay, if you let that dry out, it'll look like that even after it dries out. I don't so much extra thin it. No, not really. And now I'm going to take this. I'm going to let it run. And just let stuff happen. Okay? And once I'm and what you can do, because the alcohol, if you blow air at it, it'll start to dry out. Like sometimes when I want, like, if I'm finding the paint struggling to come out super fine, I might over-reduce it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pat. Now if I'm doing solvent, I can use like spray away glass cleaner, or Lavallee used to have Grunge Effects. I'm not sure if they still make it. Spray away glass cleaner works great. You can get a cool grit and texture to it. Blowing air, let that alcohol dry out. The alcohol helps it. And what I also do is so I can see my mask a little clearer. Sometimes I'll counter mask in here so I don't lose the detail. Or you can just take a little of this and just try to rub that out a little. And now you can see where all your cuts are again. You don't lose them. You could do a few different colors here. You could do all sorts of stuff. And now I'm going to do, because I am going to over-reduce just a little bit. Let's see. So if they don't make it anymore, the Grunge Effects was pretty much foam glass cleaner. And the spray away glass cleaner was the best. The only thing difference was the tips. The tips that came with mics made the patterns big or small. They don't quite fit on sprayaways. They fit, but they don't stay, but you can use it. So basically, spray away glass cleaner, this stuff here, works just fine. And what you can do, if you put your finger in front of it, don't do it. Same thing. And you can do another spray. But you can't wipe. If you wipe on water-based, you're going to take everything off underneath it because it'll actually soften it. So what you got to do is you let it dry, or you pat it out. Okay? But you get the same effect. And you get that really cool grunge effect. See? Vents are on. It's magnetic. It just rotates. It's not going to fall. See? It just spins. It's just a, it's on a camera mount. One of these like ball joint camera mounts. And it's got a magnet on the back side, so it just rotates around. Okay, so that's done. So now I'm going to drop shadow everything. But there's still some moisture. Let's make sure that's all out. And this is why there's masking involved. So the guy that ran his mouth about having to mask everything, yeah, there's times where you have to mask stuff. And this is one of them. This is one of them. So now, let's drop shadow. That light's what's coming down, so I'm just going to blend where that leaf would kind of be drop shadowing. It's not going to matter there. Now when I do something like this, I trace the whole thing, so I make sure there's paint on both sides of the mask, so there's delineation. Especially if I'm keeping it like white as possible. This one I'm going a little grungier than I'm doing on the bike. The bike's a much bigger area. Okay, so now it's on. So I want this to look like it's drop shadowing down here to give it more lift. So watch. I'll come up here and then I'll join it. And then there's the spike, the shadow from that. And that's going to create a dramatic lift, being that far away. It's a little closer. If the shadow's close to the surface, the object is close to the surface. If the shadow is further away from the item, the object is further away from the surface. Okay? I don't know if how I said that makes sense, but in my head it does. So like, if I paint right up to this rose, this thorn vine will be like right against the surface. So right here, it's going to appear like it's right against the surface. When I go here, I'm going to come down like this. And that's going to create a different lift. And there's the shadow for that hook. And there's a shadow for that one. And a shadow for that. Okay, see, now that starts to create lift. Here, same thing, I'm going to keep this one close so it doesn't interfere with that shadow. That side. And then it's going to flip around to this side. top-down light source. Okay. Now the skull's going to be pretty much resting right on the surface. So we're going to go a nice heavy shadow there. Oh. See, I didn't cut all the way through the mask there, and I left that. So we're going to have to make this work. Get rid of that nice sharp edge. So a lot of times you do your drop shadows last. This time I'm doing them first. Okay? So you're planning ahead. Hey, the bug, what's going on, man? Welcome, welcome, welcome. So I will have an issue. I do this drop shadow here where it's got a hard edge, but it's going to look like a border, and then I'll shadow it so it looks like it bumps up. Same thing with here. That'll make sense at the end. Okay, so now what I have to look at is what can come off first. Obviously this is on top, and there's going to be a drop shadow on the skull, but I can't remove the skull with this here. So what I want to do though is I want to pull the vine, because this is the next thing. Remember, the last thing mask is the first thing off. And then the first thing mask is the last one off. So it's a flip. So pull your masking. Would have been easier with one piece, but you see how clean this looks now. It's going to be really dramatic. Now this vine is going to go over the skull. So I got to paint the skull first to drop shadow before I can do any of the detail in this vine. So really pulling this to unlock the skull. And what's in here, I've already cut through the rose. So when I paint the rose, this piece will stay white. So I just got to be careful not to really shadow this part yet. It gets a little complex, but believe me, it starts to make sense as you go through it. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop shadow this piece before I pull the skull in this, but not this one here because the vine's going to go through it. So we're just going to put a little bit here. Not going there. I can have a little here, it's fine. A little here, that's fine. Thank you so much, Dave. Okay, so I'm just going to leave that. And that's going to go through. Nope. So basically where it goes through, I'm not shadowing here or here yet. I'm not putting any paint. This can all come at the end. Okay, because that's going to be, I'm going to freehand all the detailing inside here and all the shading. We're not going to do anything like that. So what I'm going to do now is I got to unlock the skull. Oh, before I do that, let's put some of these vines. See all those dark vines? If you look like between the skull and the leaf, see how there's thin ones? Those are just freehand, and I should have done it before I pulled the mask. I got to be careful. So these are basically the same thorn, but just background ones. So they're further away, so they're just silhouetted. I wouldn't have to be so careful if I didn't pull the mask yet, but I did. Okay, so that's going back through there. And you can put highlights and stuff on there. You can put thinner ones. Now right now these look a little like bad cracks, so we can add little edge highlights to them. But what's going to really help, like edge highlights meaning I could go through with an eraser stick and I could pop little highlights. Well, you could do with white, but you will get a little blue shift. But see, I can just hit little like light gleams, and it's going to make it look like that top-down lighting is hitting the thorn. See how that just added that nice little... Every technique in the book. And then what I'll do is I'll do a soft drop shadow underneath these, and this will set that off. It just gives it a little more believability and depth. It's quick. For the drop shadow, I'm going to use my black candy here. The black candy I've mixed up a little thin. And that I should be able to go a little softer. And I think I'm going to use black candy on the skull. So now what I'll do is I'll do the same thing. And I'm just going to do a drop shadow. See how that... Well, see the difference between this side and this side. Okay, this side actually looks like it now has lift. This side looks flat. The same thing. I'm just going to come up and kind of trace around it. Okay, and it just starts to add lift. Drop shadows are key. See that difference? What that just did? On your drop shadows, how would you go about this? Oh, okay. So like this one, and it'll make more sense at the end, but I'll do it similar to what I just did here. I've only put the drop shadow, because this one's going under the skull, so I can put the shadow in now before I unmask. That way it's there, so it's going to be coming out. Same thing here. Because what I'm going to do is when I freehand these, I'm going to go all over these vines freehand, and that's going to take the masking look out of it. So that one is now going underneath. Okay, this one's going above, so I can't drop shadow till the skull's done. And the shadow, the distance is going to change here because at this point in the skull it's close. At this point the skull is rounded, so the shadow is actually going to drop at an angle to follow the radius of the skull. It makes more sense when I do it, but just like when I did it here, this shadow for this one gets further away and closer here, so it changes distances. Okay, so we're good there. We can do a little mineral staining coming down and get a little messy. And if I want to get it super messy, I can just go. I'm gonna let it run. Let it run. Tap it. Yeah, so it's just a matter of distance. So like I said, if your shadow is right up to the right next to the object, that means the object is just about touching the surface. If the shadow is further away, like here, the shadow for this one's actually running here and runs down this angle. So this tells me it's further away from the surface because it's down here. Okay, so it's just difference. Let's see. Okay, so let's get the skull going. So not bad for an hour and 13 minutes. We did the layout, we did the paper, we did the thorns, we did the gripe, we talked about a bunch of shit. So just be careful. I did get a little loose, and some stuff did bleed under the mask, so you got to be careful. And I got a little bit of goop there, so let's clean that off. And that's a little. Good. Alright, so now I'm going to pull this one, and because I cut through, the thorn vine is still on top of the skull. Okay? Airbrushing business. It depends what part of the business you're in. Okay? Like any business, it depends on where you're at in the marketplace. And where you are. Like if you're in the Midwest, the middle of nowhere, airbrushing t-shirts is probably lower unless you're in a mall that's really into it. But if you live near a beach down in Florida or like North Carolina, you can make a killing at it. Or Jersey if you're on a beach. Custom motorcycles. It's still a decent market, but you gotta already be kind of in the circles to get in. Takes a while. Like any business this needs, especially airbrushing, it's a luxury business. So it's definitely not as easy as it used to be. Okay, that bled through. I'm just gonna use an eraser to clean up that edge. Clean up here. Well, the airbrushing is a tough business overall because it's got ebbs and flows. So it depends on your market, depends on what style you're doing, and do people like your style? Like, if you only like doing skulls and fire, and the market's moved away from skulls and fire, you're gonna have a hard time. If the market's in skulls and fire and you hate doing them, and you like doing graphics and flame jobs, then, or graphics and lowrider style, then you might not do as well. But if that style's in, so it really determines your area, things like that. So I know guys who are doing really well. I know guys who are doing really poorly. Overall, it's a craft business. It's gonna have difficulties. It's not something really you're gonna get a job being an airbrush artist for like a design firm anymore. I mean, it's pretty much an independent job type of thing that you're gonna do different types of work in. So. Yeah, it's kind of a tough question to answer overall with any certainty. The style has a big thing to do with it. Okay, so what I got to be careful of is when I'm doing the skull here, I'm trying not to get too much contamination on the vine. And you could mask it back off just to be safe, but I'm going to wing it. In comes our paper cut. Notice this lines up nice with no plotter. I don't have to stick another mask down. It's a lot faster. Airbrush Power Academy, what's going on, man? What is the install now? I don't install. I don't. Might clarify that question if you could. Okay. Yeah, and Dan's right, Airbrush Power. Dan Powers. If you're good at what you do, the market in your area will find you, or you will reach out to people and things will come. And the more work you do for people, the more your name gets talked about, the more referrals you get, and you kind of work on leads, and you start building a reputation, and you got to be online, you got to sell yourself a little bit, you got to promote, get a basic website, you know, Instagram, YouTube, just to show your work portfolio. You don't have to be crazy, you don't have to be a YouTuber, Instagrammer to succeed, 'cause that's a whole different ballgame. But as far as airbrushing, you know, if you're into motorcycles, go to local motorcycle events and cruise nights and show your work, and go to different shows and events, or, you know, whatever you want to do. So there's ways to do it. Okay. All right. So now what I've done, if you look at how I've cut this for the skull, this one's not cut. So what I did is, where all the dark details, I cut the holes. And then for the larger areas, I made them flaps. Okay? So you watch how I'll be able to simply get this on here. And I'm not spraying it dark. I'm using my candy black. You could use a weak regular black. So I'm doing these inner details first and getting those established, right? Now look, I can fold that back and see that detail's in there. I can maybe go in a little stronger. Let me bring this up here and look at my, so it's like a reference piece. You can kind of see. Okay. Yeah, no, Dan, yeah, exactly. It's, if you promote yourself positive and do good quality work and really put yourself out there, and people know you're about doing quality work for yourself and them, the work's going to come. So before I do this, I can get this area a little darker, but I don't want to do too much in here. I can hit that. Now I'm hitting, there's a bunch of little cuts here, just little details. Now what I'm going to do is watch. The details in there. Now I can fold back the eye, and I can just hit loosely around. Not crazy, just shade it. You know, again, we're talking about freehand versus masking. This stage is like 5 minutes, and then the next hour or 40 minutes is freehand. So your masking time or stencil time is about 5% of the job. So again, people can talk stencils all they want, but if you're using stencils right, you're only using that 5% of the time. If you just blow and go, it's going to look like a stencil job. There's a little crack there, little things here. So now I'm going to fold. I'll fold this back. Okay. And now I'm just going to put here. And all this is doing is giving me a registration for all the major shapes without having to draw everything on the surface. There's no pencil marks. And if you don't want magnets, you can just, sometimes magnets are a pain in the butt, but. So now I can come around here, I can fold this back. And again, this is all just for registration. I'm not doing any major detail with this. It's just registration. That's all the stencil is for. And if you're new to Skullz, and this is, if I'm doing my tattoo style Skullz, I don't go through all this. But if I want something to be a little bit more realistic, that I'm going to do that. So you see how fast that is, and it gets you a nice soft registration without having any pencil sketch lines to deal with. Or what's nice thing about doing this, why I didn't plot this, the plotter would have really super crisp hard edges. This doesn't. It has loose representations of shape and shade. So therefore, now I can just kind of do my own thing, and I'm not worried about you know, covering hard edges or softening edges. I can still stylize it. Like, I like my kind of have that mix of some like tattoo style line work and then soft shading. So I'll still do some lines. So it kind of has that, you know, airbrush kind of tattoo style feel. But it also stays in that kind of semi-realistic phase. Let me show you the same skull because I've done it years back. Me and Rhino did this project years back. And this is a better example of not having line work in it. So you see I started putting some lines here to kind of give it that tattoo illustration feel. But if you don't, you keep it soft. Now this one has no line work. Okay, so it's pretty much the same skull. This is just done more for realism, or stylized realism. This gets more toward the kind of, you know, motorcycle paint, tattoo style work. Hey, Ms. Mendes, thank you for that. Appreciate it. And I can also kind of shadow. Let me get this area done. Before I treat this vine, I want to make sure I got this exactly where I want it. We'll also do some erasing and eradication into here. No, so this is the Iwata SB model. Okay, the S model is the side feed, smaller body, and this is the Takumi version, so it's got a smaller distance from here to here. It's a smaller throw. This is the Takumi Eclipse, which is an Eclipse side feed. I'm using that as well. Well, thank you for viewing and popping in, Joel. Appreciate it. So yeah, so Takumi Micron and Takumi Eclipse. So I've been working with this for the most part, and then I switched to this for the detail, for a little finer details. You could do both. You can do this whole job with either. Just for the candy, I want to thin it a little bit more. You're gonna want a little tighter control. It is a micron. The Takumi SB is a micron Takumi. There's two different micron types. So you got a side feed micron, which is this one. So this is the SB micron, but this is the Takumi version. Prior to that, the micron SB, which is this one here, looks similar, but it's actually longer. So if you look at the brush next to each other, you can see it's about a half an inch shorter. So that's the Takumi version of the micron. They're both microns. And then you have the top feed micron, which doesn't have the side cup, but the cup's here. And that's the CM, the custom micron. I have those. Those are out in the shop. I use those mostly on the motorcycles. Oh, cool, man. Yeah, that's a great little exercise. I should do a fresher video on that and update it. So now that all this is here, so now I can go in and do all these little details. Kind of work from the photo reference a little bit more. And again, I still keep it kind of stylized because I don't really go for photorealism. And the reason I don't, unless the job calls for it, on motorcycles, if you go too photorealistic, from 5-10 feet away, it's hard to read. On custom motorcycles and cars, you want it to read at like 10-15 feet away, or when it's going by in motion. So if you over detail it and over soften things, it's harder to read at a distance. So it's just a style I worked a lot in, and what I found works best for me. Like, again, the technique, the end result can be however you want it at this point. Oh yeah, I definitely should do one. I did one kind of showing you this stuff, which this is the chaos that's near me, and this is the bench. And if I loosen this up a little bit, I can go around to the studio, and that's what I'm seeing. That's a New World's paint. That's what I do for miniature. That is the big tumbler for paint. That's the mixing area. There's a little spray booth here. And then that's the whole switching stuff I'm dealing with as I do the live feed. And then I can't really show everything. There's my desk and bench and all the stuff out there. So, yeah, lots of different stuff. And now this camera is out of focus. That's all right. We're not going to switch too much anymore. There we go. But yeah, I should do a quick walk around at some point. I should do like a nice little video. So are you using candy on the whole painting? No. So this was done with Wicked Black as a semi-transparent, but I mixed it so it's transparent so I can build it. And then I'm using the candy black in here that's mixed even softer so I can do the skull, get a different kind of effect to it. And it's got a slightly different tone. Candy black has almost a cooler, purplier cast to it. So I kind of like that. Joe, that's great, man. I appreciate you coming in and out, and glad you learned the stuff from it. That's kind of why I do this. I'm not doing it for the money, that is for sure. Okay, so before I get too far, so now I kind of got this done. So we talked about shadow right here. Let me go to the top down. Okay, so right here, I want this thorn bush, this thorn vine to be right up against the skull. So the shadow is going to be right on it. And the drop shadow is going to be right there for that. And see, it's right against it. Same thing here. Up here too. But right here, it's going to drift off because the skull actually radiuses around. So the shadow will do this. Okay? Because see, the shadow here is way down here. So it kind of has to meet up with it. Okay, and that helps create the depth. Now, there has to be some delineation. Sorry, I got to be careful right there. Put a little too much there. There's some freehand involved when you got to do this. But now that that's done, I can see it. And I can now pull this off. So now that thorn now goes over, okay? This little bit here, if it's a problem, eraser stick works just fine. So I didn't get much down there, nice and clean, okay? So now that one goes over. And now when I freehand this, it'll freehand right over, and I'll do the lines like this. We'll do a little core shadow right inside here. I like those thorns to kind of come over so it looks like they kind of overlap and twist a little bit. This is what I mean about masking and freehanding at the same time. Michael Cohen, you're a gentleman and a scholar, sir. Appreciate it. So 9:30, not too bad. Hour and a half. We're at this stage. Shadow that a little more. Cool. Amos, what did you order? The candies? So I think I missed the first part of that. And we got to also shadow where the flowers coming across. And you can see this leaf. I can kind of figure that out now. I'm just putting this now. I usually wait till after the detail, but sometimes my ADD brain likes to bounce around. So this is a good point. So see, this shadow here is going to be closer to the vine, but further away when it gets to the skull. Definitely like, subscribe, and like I said, if you guys just joining, if you want to download the rose vector set that has the rose and skulls together, and the rose set's available too, which is just roses, that is right here. So that's 15 roses in the petals, and each rose has a skull in it. There's another download that's just roses. That's a dozen roses. It's got a couple of different roses that aren't on here as well. So between the two sets, you have quite a bit to work from. I'm trying to configure a vine, like a thorn brush, for Illustrator and Photoshop and like Procreate that you can use. And for those who have my biomechanical brush set, I am creating a Procreate brush version of that as well. So see how I got a little mess there? I'm going to clean that up. That little shadow. Pop that. Good. This is always OnlyFans. Yeah, getting what are we talking about here? Yeah, so what I do, Rob, I buy a 4x8 sheet. I do the 18x24 cuts. I think I'm paying $95 for a sheet of polymetal. And then you cut them, and I get like, what is it? When I go to 12x18s, I get like 22 of them. Yeah, so you get like 12. Yeah. So it's really worth it. Cool. Okay, so here we go. And now it's just skull time. I think what we're going to end up tonight is just getting to this stage, getting the skull done. And the rose is going to wait till either next week or maybe Monday. You guys want me to do a Monday wrap-up feed for this one? Or wait till next Thursday? Because it's 9:37. I don't even really want to start the rose at this time. I think I'd rather get to it. Oh, very cool. Yeah, if I had a store where I could buy a couple at a time, I would. Monday at 8 would be great after Leahy. Done deal. We'll do a Monday night wrap up. And that'll be the rose portion, since this gets the skull and the vines done. Yeah, so we're going to do Monday night. I'll do Monday after Steve's. I'll do the Monday wrap up. Because I know this is going to be done tonight, unless I go like 3 hours, and I'm too tired for that. I'm old. You know, this is the first time I shared on Monday's Cool. Alright, we'll do it Monday. This is the first time I shared it on was Airbrush Advice for Beginners by Professionals. So let me know if anyone's a first time viewer from there. I'd like to know how people are finding us. You know what, let's get a little Cheryl Mendez texture effects. So we'll do a little texture detail up in here. We'll do a little motion detail. I like doing that. Lazy opening act. Oh, you're from Las Vegas? Nice. I like Vegas. I get out there a couple times a year. Always for SEMA, for one. So let's get the skull wrapped up tonight. Let's get the skull done. We're done enough. Just nice little details. Happy little details. Let's see if I can get this. Oh, wrong way, wrong way. There we go. There we go. Zoom that in there. Nice. Okay, so that skull's pretty good. Let's do some eradication to bring out some highlights. Alright, let's see. Alright, so we want to bring some highlights to this without white. A couple different ways. So let's do some electric erasing. I'm going to go in and just... You can see I bring out that nice little highlight right here. I'm going to highlight that edge of the nose. Because if you use white, you're going to get a blue shift, and it's going to look a little cartoon. It just won't be as nice. And you can do a little like bone texture, and little pits in the bone just by kind of skating on the surface and just bouncing it. Well, it's not hard, but it just takes practice. You see what that does? That just adds that nice bone texture and a nice natural highlight without using white, because we have a white substrate. It just really works well. Now, if your eraser's getting dirty, you'll start getting some black marks, so you gotta be careful with that. Times where I still have it. Oh, it's in my other drawing bin. You know, like the old sandpaper blocks for sharpening. Those can clean your eraser really well. Taking the two camera angles. Yeah, thanks, man. So if you want to sharpen this, you can get a little closer right here. I'm just gonna just slowly pitch it. We'll make a nice pointy tip. Or you could put the smaller eraser in. So now I can kind of come in. So I'll do a little crack here. And it just starts to give a really nice look. Now, the other trick you can do is, let me bring up this brush. Take your airbrush, either reducer, isopropyl alcohol. If you're doing solvent, you can use lacquer thinner or paint reducer. So that was a erasing technique. with an electric eraser. You can also do the eraser technique with an eraser stick. So if I want to do some of these lines, see, I can come in. Great for doing hair. Great for doing kind of these soft lines. Because it's pretty soft, see? Go in some nice... So look, I'm going to do... See this highlight on the edge? It's kind of soft. I'm going to do right here with this. Really light. So you get that nice soft. I can soften up this stuff. Okay, so that's using an eraser stick. Or this is isopropyl alcohol. Practice this on stuff before you do on a painting. But watch, I can come in now. See that line? That's done with like pushing the paint and eradicating it. Basically with thinner. In this case, isopropyl alcohol. So watch, I'll come in here, I'll brighten this edge. And it's a really nice push. So basically, the hot reducer, or in this case, isopropyl, is kind of reactivating and remelting the paint. So those are 3 ways to do it. You can do it with isopropyl alcohol, you can do it with an eraser stick, you can do an electric eraser, or a mix of them all to get whatever effect you want. And you can go in with white paint and do that as well. Sometimes I do, sometimes I like that look. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes it's just whatever's first handy. But all intents and purposes, that's pretty much a done skull, aside from extra details. I really like to get, when I'm doing a complex multi-layer painting like this, I like to get each stage to like 80%, 80, 90% before, you know, without finishing at 100%. I get it to about 80, 90% so it's good. And that leaves room for blending later when I have all the masking and balancing everything out. I'm not overly locked in. And that way it all comes together at the end. You know, so like I said, this is all done, but there's still room to add other texture, other tone and colors, and maybe some glazing or blending. You can do all sorts of stuff at this point. And we can even do some in here. Like, see if I want to make this crisper. Now that's sharper. If I did white there, it wouldn't look the same. You'd have a different color shift. So, but this works really well. Like I said, but that's more stuff you can do later. And you can come in with white later at the end too, and I can kind of soft airbrush some of this stuff up. This is more illustration techniques more than like automotive custom paint. That's where a lot of these tricks came from fine art illustrators, poster makers. That's where a lot of these tricks, like even when I did the popsicle stick and the kind of texture of the background, I learned that from an old school illustrator back in 89, 90, along with a friend of mine when we do t-shirts. I have another trick where I use like a Q-tip straw. Warlock, thanks, man. Never thought of using. Oh yeah. So even in here where there's just some overspray, look, I can go in here and I can just kind of softly put some other grit and texture in. Push some of this around. It just kind of really works good. Like, see how this is already a dot right there? If I put a little underneath it, now it looks like a little hole because it's got a little highlight edge. And if you do it right, you can actually push paint to one side and get like a hard edge too. The more techniques you know, the better your toolbox gets and your arsenal gets. It's like a mechanic. The longer you're a car mechanic, the more tools and specialty stuff you get used to using. Your toolbox gets bigger and bigger, and essentially you get better and better, more valuable, and you make more money. And yeah. Mike, I appreciate it. Yeah, like, share, subscribe. Tune in Monday night. Don't forget you can join up, support the channel, be a Down Dirty Trickster. There's a join QR code right there. You get 25% off all the store, all the downloads and vector stuff, and we got some other stuff planning. I keep saying that. We got more stuff planned for members coming up real soon. I got to get through Adepticon. Go over to the store. Check out McKay Fine Art. Lots of different downloads and projects. Tons of past videos. And probably a couple 100 hours of content for free. Yeah, technique and tricks and shortcuts and yep, everything. You know, I learned stuff that I use in the freaking hobby world, and that's kind of what I'm doing on the tabletop side. I'm bringing some of these techniques onto the tabletop that aren't widely used or known, and then yeah, just seeing what I can mix up and go from there. And that, I think, was a pretty successful That was a pretty successful 2 hours, I think. We went from layout to discussion. We didn't talk too much about the paint mix. I showed you the paint we're using. This is the colors we've used the whole time. I haven't used the red, but it's pretty much all I've used is the black and the candy black. And then we talked about the reduction of mixtures. And, oh man, miniature paintings are just, there's some real crazy guys out there. This is the two I'm working on now for Adepticon. Let me bring my top down. So this is going to be the project for the 2-hour intro class. This is going to be all done, mostly airbrush, little brush, and talk about that. It's a 2-hour basic, you know, how to learn to use the airbrush, clean it, and get an effect like this, and some washes, and get it really clean. And then me and Joe Orthaber are doing a 2-hour class, a 6-hour class, which is going to be this guy, which I've started. This is only at an early stage where I got some, I'm still experimenting with skin tones, if I like this kind of purplish tone or not. This is just kind of in its wash stage, but this is what we're going to be starting at Adepticon. So this is going to be really cool. And with that, kiddies, I want to thank everyone for popping in on this Thursday Airbrush Down Dirty Tricks night. Really appreciate everyone's support, all your time. Go check out some of the downloads, share the feed, share the posts, tell all your friends, get more people involved, and make this channel grow and grow, and we'll do more and more videos. I'll see you guys Monday night, 8 o'clock, after Steve Leahy's live feed. And the nice thing is Steve's going to be on YouTube now more, than Facebook. So you'll go right from Steve's to mine if you have all the time. So thanks for sticking with me. Thanks for watching. See you guys soon. Have a good one.